Imagine this: you're a successful entrepreneur, sitting at a fancy restaurant, enjoying a meal after a long day of business deals. Everything seems perfect, until a young waiter comes to your table. His uniform is a little wrinkled, his expression nervous, and you can't help but roll your eyes as he fumbles through his task. He's just another person in a lowly job, right? Someone you could easily brush off. But what if that waiter wasn't just a random face in the crowd? What if he was about to change your life forever? This is the story of how one arrogant businessman, too focused on his own success, laughed at a waiter without realizing who he really was. Michael Thomas, a self-made millionaire, was living a life many would envy. With his flashy car, big house, and thriving business, he thought he had it all. He prided himself on his achievements, and in his eyes, the world was divided into two kinds of people: the successful and the others, those who worked for him and didn't quite measure up. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Michael found himself at a high-end restaurant, enjoying some well-deserved time alone. As he perused the menu, he noticed the waiter, who was assigned to his table. The young man looked out of place, his hands shaking slightly as he took the drink order. Michael couldn't help but snicker to himself. What could a guy like this possibly understand about running a business, let alone life itself? It was moments like this that Michael felt a sense of superiority. He made a joke about the waiter's clumsiness, expecting a laugh, maybe even some sympathy from his friends who were sitting at the table with him. But the young waiter didn't respond the way Michael expected. Instead of looking embarrassed or backing down, the waiter kept his composure and continued doing his job. As Michael laughed, his friends joined in, unaware that something much bigger was about to unfold. The evening passed and the waiter went about his work, but Michael didn't think twice about the interaction. To him, it was just another moment in a day filled with many others. However, what Michael didn't know was that this young waiter wasn't who he seemed to be. His name was Adam Turner, and he was about to become the key to Michael's future in a way he could never have predicted. Adam wasn't just a waiter trying to make ends meet. He was someone with connections, knowledge, and an incredible story of his own. What happened next would leave Michael stunned and force him to rethink everything he knew about success, humility, and how we judge others. But for now, the question remained: how would this chance encounter change Michael's life, and could he handle the truth when he finally learned who Adam really was? Stay tuned, because this story is about to take a dramatic twist that no one saw coming. The next day, Michael barely gave the waiter a second thought. After all, he was busy running his empire, navigating business meetings, and constantly making decisions that affected dozens of lives. He was the type of person who thrived on control, on knowing that everything around him was exactly as it should be. His employees looked up to him, his partners respected him, and his competitors feared him. In his eyes, he was at the top of the food chain. But as the days went by, something started to eat away at him. It wasn't the laughter at the restaurant, or even the awkward exchange with the waiter. It was something far more unsettling. Michael began to notice that his business deals weren't going as smoothly as they once had. A couple of investments he thought were sure bets started to falter. He had trouble with his cash flow, and his once flawless marketing campaigns were now being met with resistance. It was as if something, or someone, was pulling the strings, quietly orchestrating his downfall. At first, Michael brushed it off. He assumed it was just a rough patch, something any successful entrepreneur went through. But soon, things started to spiral faster than he could control. His partners were questioning his judgment, his employees were showing signs of frustration, and even his close friends seemed to be pulling away, sensing that something was wrong. The real turning point came when Michael received an unexpected email. It was brief but intriguing. "I know what you did. If you want to know who I really am, meet me tomorrow at the old warehouse on 5th. The email was signed simply, Adam Turner. Michael stared at the screen, his heart racing. He couldn't believe it. Adam? The waiter? Why would he be reaching out now? And what did he mean by, "I know what you did"? The strange message set off a chain of thoughts in Michael's mind. What if the waiter wasn't just a random person? What if he was somehow connected to everything that had been going wrong in Michael's life lately? He couldn't shake the feeling that the laugh he had shared with his friends that night had been more than just a harmless joke. There was something deeper at play, something far beyond his understanding. With growing curiosity, and perhaps a bit of fear, Michael decided to take a chance. He didn't like the idea of being played, of being made to feel small. But there was something about the message, the way Adam had signed it, that made Michael wonder if the young waiter knew something that could change everything. As the day of the meeting approached, Michael's mind raced with possibilities. Was Adam a mysterious figure with a hidden agenda? Was he a key to a secret world Michael had no idea existed? And, most importantly, what was he really trying to tell him? Michael knew he was walking into unknown territory, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. Little did he know, this decision would set the stage for a confrontation that would not only test his business acumen, but also challenge everything he thought he knew about power, success, and respect. The truth, it seemed, was about to hit him like a freight train. But could he handle what he was about to learn? The next day, Michael found himself standing outside the old warehouse on Fifth, his hands clenched into fists, trying to shake off the unease creeping up his spine. The warehouse, once a bustling hub for industry, now stood abandoned, its windows broken, the walls covered in graffiti. It was the last place he would ever expect to meet anyone, let alone someone who had apparently been watching him from the shadows. As he stepped inside, the heavy door creaked, echoing through the empty space. The dim light filtered through cracks in the walls, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch out like fingers. Michael's heart was pounding in his chest, each step feeling heavier than the last. His mind raced with questions. Why had Adam reached out to him? Was this some sort of revenge? Or was there something more, something that Michael was too blind to see? A figure emerged from the darkness, and Michael froze. It was Adam, but not the nervous, clumsy waiter he remembered from the restaurant. This was a different man entirely, more confident, more composed. He was dressed sharply in a simple black suit, the kind of outfit that looked out of place in a place like this. The contrast left Michael unsettled. The waiter's shaky demeanor had been a facade all along, and now the real Adam was standing in front of him. "You're wondering why you're here, aren't you?" Adam's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that Michael hadn't expected. "You're probably thinking this is some sort of game, or maybe you're wondering what I have on you. But it's not about that. It's about understanding who you really are and how far you've come, or rather, how far you've fallen." Michael stood there, speechless, his thoughts colliding. Adam wasn't just some random waiter. It was clear now that he knew more about Michael than he was willing to admit. The pieces weren't fitting together, and the longer he stood there, the more questions piled up. Why had he been so blind to the warning signs? Why did Adam want to reveal this to him now? And why did the mysterious tone of Adam's words make Michael feel like he was being pulled into something far bigger than a simple encounter between a businessman and a waiter? The tension in the room was thick. The weight of Adam's gaze felt like it was pressing down on Michael, forcing him to confront truths he wasn't ready to face. What was the hidden agenda here, and how was it connected to the crumbling empire Michael had worked so hard to build? Adam wasn't just a figure from his past. He was someone who held the key to everything that was about to change. The questions were piling up, but Michael had no choice but to follow the path Adam was about to lead him down. Adam's eyes never left Michael, as the silence between them grew unbearable. Michael could feel his palms sweating, his breath shallow. This wasn't the conversation he had imagined. He had come here thinking he'd confront a disgruntled employee, or maybe learn that Adam was trying to blackmail him. But this felt like something far more dangerous. something that was quietly unraveling the life he'd built. "You think you're in control, don't you?" Adam said, his voice cool, almost pitying. "You think you've earned everything you have, that your success came from nothing but hard work and intelligence. But there's always something more at play, Michael. Always a story behind the story." Michael's mind was racing, trying to piece together what Adam was implying. Was he hinting that someone was sabotaging his business from the inside? That was possible, but who? The idea of someone pulling the strings from behind the curtain made Michael feel like he was losing his grip on everything he thought he knew. "I don't know what you're talking about," Michael finally managed to say, his voice betraying the uncertainty creeping into his chest. He was trying to maintain control, but the doubt was creeping in. "Who are you really, Adam? What do you want from me?" Adam stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in the dim, cold warehouse. The faint sound of footsteps echoing off the walls seemed to amplify the tension in the air. "It's not about what I want," Adam said. "It's about what you've done, and what you don't even realize yet." Michael felt his stomach churn. He wasn't prepared for this. The last few weeks of turmoil, the failures that had begun to pile up in his business, was this all connected to Adam somehow? The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. What if this wasn't just about revenge? What if Adam was trying to show him something he had missed all along? The air grew thicker as Adam spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "The truth is, Michael, you've been playing the wrong game all along. And now, you're about to learn what happens when you finally realize the stakes." Michael's heart pounded in his chest. The room felt smaller, and Adam's words seemed to echo in his mind, bouncing off the walls like a warning. Everything that had been wrong in his life, every piece of the puzzle he hadn't been able to fit together, was it all leading to this moment? He knew he was on the edge of something big, something that could either destroy him or change his life forever. But the question was, would he be able to handle the truth once it came to light? Michael's mind was spinning. The weight of Adam's words hung in the air, heavier than ever. The truth, the one he hadn't been able to see, was just out of reach, but the fear of what it might be was suffocating. His instincts told him to get out of the warehouse, to escape this unnerving conversation before it went any further. But his feet were rooted to the spot, unable to move as the tension thickened. Adam's gaze never wavered, and Michael could feel the quiet storm of the moment building towards something he wasn't prepared for. "I'm giving you a choice, Michael," Adam said, his voice turning cold. "You can keep going on the path you're on, believing that you've earned everything, or you can face the truth and watch everything you've built crumble to the ground. But it's not just your empire at risk. It's something far more personal." The words hit Michael like a slap in the face. What did Adam mean by personal? Was this just about his business, or was there something more at play here? His mind raced, trying to make sense of Adam's cryptic message, but it was like trying to catch smoke with his bare hands. Suddenly, Adam pulled out a small envelope from his jacket and placed it on the table between them. Michael's heart skipped a beat. He didn't want to open it, he didn't want to know what was inside. But the curiosity, the need to understand what Adam was really after, overpowered his hesitation. He reached for the envelope, his fingers trembling as he tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper. Michael scanned the contents, and his eyes widened as he read the words. It was a picture, a family portrait of Michael with his wife and daughter. But it wasn't just any photo. At the bottom of the picture, there was a message scrawled in black ink, asterisk, "This is where it all begins." Asterisk. Michael's blood ran cold. He looked up at Adam, his heart racing. "What is this? What's going on?" Adam smiled, a knowing, almost sinister smile that sent a chill down Michael's spine. "I told you. You've been blind, Michael. There's more to this story than just business and power. Your family is in danger, and it's because of the choices you've made. You've built your empire on a lie." Michael's mind was reeling now. The stakes had just shifted entirely. This wasn't just about his success or failures as a businessman. His family was at risk, and whatever game Adam was playing, it was far more dangerous than he had imagined. Adam wasn't just some mysterious figure from his past, he was a threat, one that Michael could no longer ignore. "What do you want from me?" Michael choked out, his voice barely a whisper. But Adam's reply was even more chilling. "I want you to see what happens when you finally learn the truth. And trust me, Michael, you won't like it." With that, Adam turned and began to walk away, leaving Michael alone with the weight of his words and the terrifying unknown that now loomed over him. The room felt smaller, the shadows darker. What had Adam meant? And how could Michael protect his family when he didn't even understand what was happening? The clock was ticking, and the answers he needed were slipping further out of reach. Michael stood frozen in the dimly lit warehouse, the picture of his family in his trembling hands. His heart was racing, each beat echoing in his ears as he tried to comprehend what Adam had just revealed. His empire, his carefully constructed life, was it all built on a lie? The stakes were higher than he could have ever imagined, and now Adam was gone, leaving him with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear, he had to act. His family was in danger. With his mind in overdrive, Michael rushed home, his thoughts consumed by Adam's cryptic message. When he arrived, he found his wife, Sophie, and their daughter, Emily, sitting in the living room, oblivious to the storm brewing outside. Michael could barely catch his breath, his hands shaking as he stepped into the house. He felt an overwhelming sense of urgency, a need to protect them at all costs. "Sophie," he said, his voice hoarse, "we need to leave." "Now?" Sophie looked at him, startled by the sudden panic in his voice. "What's going on? What are you talking about?" "Just trust me," Michael said, trying to steady his nerves. "We don't have much time." As they gathered their things, the weight of Adam's warning hung over him. But just as Michael was about to usher them out the door, his phone buzzed in his pocket. The name on the screen made his stomach drop. It was from a private number. He hesitated for a moment before answering, his voice barely audible. "Hello." There was silence on the other end, and then a low, familiar voice spoke. "I told you to pay attention, Michael. Now, it's too late." The line went dead. Michael's heart skipped a beat. That voice, it was Adam's. But why was he calling? What did he mean by too late? Panic rose in his chest as he looked to Sophie, her face filled with confusion. "We need to get out now," he said, grabbing her hand. But as they reached the front door, something stopped them. There, standing at the threshold of the house, was Adam. His presence was like a shadow that had crept into Michael's life and taken root. Adam didn't look like a man who had come to negotiate. He looked cold, calculating. "You really thought you could escape?" Adam's voice was calm, almost amused. "You're too deep in this, Michael. You can't run from the consequences of your actions." Michael stood frozen, his blood running cold. "What do you want from me?" he demanded, his voice trembling. Adam's smile was small but chilling. "You had your chance to make things right. Now, it's time to face the truth." And then, with a sudden, horrifying twist, Adam stepped aside, revealing what had been hidden behind him, a figure, barely visible at first. Michael's eyes widened in disbelief as the figure stepped into the light. It was Michael's own brother, Daniel. The brother he had long thought to be lost to a tragic accident years ago. His body had never been found, and everyone assumed he had died. But here he was, standing alive, and staring at Michael with a look of cold betrayal. The world seemed to tilt beneath Michael's feet as the truth crashed down on him. Adam wasn't just a random person. He was part of a plan that had been years in the making. And Daniel, his brother, had been playing a part in it all along. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Michael had been deceived, manipulated by the people he trusted most, and now, it was too late to undo the damage. The truth had been waiting for him all along, and now, there was no turning back. Michael stood motionless, the weight of the revelation crashing over him like a tidal wave. His brother, Daniel, who he had mourned for years, was alive. The man standing before him wasn't some stranger with a grudge, it was family. Family he thought he had lost forever. The betrayal was almost too much to process. "Daniel," Michael whispered, his voice shaking. You were supposed to be dead. How is this possible?" Daniel's expression was unreadable as he stepped forward, his cold eyes never leaving Michael's face. "I've been watching you, Michael. All this time. You think you've made it on your own, that you've built this empire by yourself. But the truth is, you've been using people, stepping over them to get ahead. And now, you've crossed the wrong line." Michael's stomach twisted. The man he had once looked up to as a brother now stood before him as an adversary, someone who blamed him for everything that had gone wrong. But Adam's presence beside Daniel made things even worse. This wasn't just a personal vendetta. It was a plan, a calculated move that had been set in motion long before Michael could have ever understood. "You don't understand," Michael said, his voice growing more desperate. I never wanted this. I was just trying to build something. I made mistakes, but I was trying to make things right." Daniel's laugh was low and bitter. "You never saw it, did you? You're just like the rest of them, blind, thinking you can manipulate your way to the top without facing the consequences. You didn't just hurt me, Michael. You hurt everyone who cared about you. And now, it's time for you to face what you've done." The anger in Daniel's voice stung, but there was a deeper pain hidden beneath it, a wound that Michael had never understood. As the silence stretched between them, Michael realized this wasn't just about business or family anymore, it was about redemption. It was about seeing the truth, no matter how ugly, and facing it head-on. For the first time in years, Michael understood what Adam had been trying to teach him. It wasn't just about losing his empire. It was about understanding the real cost of his ambition, and what it had done to the people he loved. Adam stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "You have a choice, Michael. You can walk away and lose everything, or you can make things right, for yourself, and for your family. But know this, nothing stays hidden forever." The words hung in the air, a final challenge. Michael's thoughts swirled, but in that moment, he made his decision. He wasn't going to let his life end in this spiral of lies and deceit. He turned to Sophie, who had been silently standing in the doorway, eyes wide with fear, but with a flicker of understanding behind them. He reached for her hand, and without a word, they walked out together, leaving Adam and Daniel behind. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where Michael would have to rebuild everything he had once taken for granted. But this time, he would do it with honesty, with the understanding that success wasn't just about power or wealth. It was about facing the truth and making amends before it was too late.